Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 189 with Enoch Yang. It's a bit of a different episode than your typical Secret Sonics conversation. Think of it more as a practical guide to getting systems up and running for your audio business so that you can streamline your work and focus better on the projects you're passionate about. Enoch and I discuss when to start implementing systems and what to focus on, future-proofing your business, how to leverage your website and social media, AI and the future of tech, the benefits of automation, and so much more. I think you're really going to dig this conversation. So with all that to say, here's my conversation with Enoch Yang coming up right here on Secret Sonics. Hey everyone, if you're a music studio professional who wants to build deeper relationships with better clients, former guest of the show, Carl Bonner, has created some free educational resources for you. The link is in the show notes below, so go check it out. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Enoch Yang. Enoch is a systems and operational management specialist known for his expertise in systematizing and automating operations within the music industry, with a strong focus on independent music producers, production houses, distributors, PR companies, and music tech firms. Enoch has consistently optimized workflows and driven operational efficiency. Enoch first appeared on the show back in October of 2021, and we talked about his backstory and his music a little bit more there. And if you want to go check it out, you definitely should. Today, though, we're going to talk a little bit about systems and automation, which is something that we both thought could be helpful for people listening to the show. We're all in the music business, and so we all have to kind of make a living, and these are ways that can maybe help us all do a better job at all of that stuff. So yeah, with all that to say, welcome back to Secret Sonics, Enoch.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I've been well. It's been a pretty busy week, but all things considered, it's been pretty steady.
Yeah, the other thing I probably should mention is that you've definitely helped me a bunch with automation recently, and it's been super, super helpful. And I'm sure we'll get into that in the course of the episode. So thank you for all of your help and the knowledge that you bring to the table.
Cool. Heck yeah. Yep. Happy to help.
Awesome. So a lot has happened since we last spoke, because that was like in October of 2021, which was coming up on almost 2 years ago. So bring us up to date. What have you been up to in the interim? What pivots have you made? Love to hear about what happened.
Honestly, in my mind, it feels like I talked to you in October of 2022. I can't believe it's been a year since that's happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of things have happened. Kept working with that pitch for a while. Eventually ended up pivoting out of that. My role with them pretty much finished for that phase of that pitch. And I started moving on to other projects. I started working with a playlisting agency, kind of optimizing the way that they run their systems, keep track of projects, and delegate tasks to their team members. I ran ops for various music producers. Those are usually short-term projects, basically tightening up the way things work. Built a few song administration systems for music marketers, and consulted a few sync agencies because of my work with that pitch on basically just how to tighten things up on their back end and make sure loose ends aren't missed as often. So yeah, basically pivoted out of that pitch, started doing this full time, and it's been fun. I've been enjoying it.
So now how would you describe what you're doing to people listening? You're kind of like a freelancer who helps music professionals make sure their systems and their business is down pat. How would you describe it, I guess, simply?
Yeah. I think the simplest way to say it is I help businesses and music industry professionals make sure that their businesses will run for years and run efficiently, and basically help them tighten up the way that they're doing things to make sure that they can focus on the stuff they want to focus on, whether that's being creative, getting outside more, spending more time with their families, all that stuff.
Yes. So many people are in the music business, they just kind of grind all the time. I'm sure it's like this in a lot of businesses also, but it's especially prevalent and pervasive in the music business of just grind it until you drop. Mm-hmm. And, as, for me, I could speak for myself, as I get into my deep mid 30s, a couple kids, time is the most valuable thing I have. And so freeing up time and not going crazy is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get into this area of automation, future-proofing music businesses, all these things that you're doing.
Yeah, it started way before I first started chatting with you in our interview back in October of 2021. I think this was pre-pandemic era. There was a podcast that was out. At that moment, it was called Six Figure Home Studio. I think it's now called Six Figure Creative. And there was an episode where the hosts talked about this like hierarchy of music business needs, which was a completely new concept to me at that time. I was trying to make a living being a music producer, and at that time was like paying rent by teaching piano and like playing session gigs. And so I was trying to like grow this business being creative. And one of the elements in this hierarchy of needs, which was loosely based off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like for psychology, one of those levels was systems and scale. Nowadays, like, is a huge part of like this future proofing thing that I'm working on. When I had initially heard about that, I had no idea what it was. But as I explored it and tried to better my own career as a producer at the time, I realized that systems was something that came pretty naturally to me. And that's just kind of how my brain processes and organizes information. And so from there, continuing this like development of who I was as a producer, as like an entrepreneur, life happened. And we talked about this on our episode in October. But at some point, I started working for one of my mentors, Mark Eckert, who has been on this show countless times. And I started working for him as an A&R. And as that position grew, I eventually transferred into licensing administration, operations, systems, and backend. I worked on like a lot of backend licensing and systems for like that pitch at the time. And that's where I learned a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. So yeah, after being with that pitch for a few years, started picking up other clients and then realized I do this pretty well. And so ended up trying to do it full time. And here I am.
Yeah, amazing. Sometimes like you think you're going to do one thing and then you realize like, oh, this is really something that I'm good at. I probably should keep at this. Yeah, it's so interesting how life happens in whatever way. Amazing. So let's talk about future proofing your audio career. How can one future proof your audio career? Like, tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So a lot of it is making sure, again, like your business is set up for future growth. And that takes a few different positions. So just to review real quick, future proofing is setting up a business so that as it grows, you're basically able to keep pace with projects and not lose track of where things are or like how things are supposed to be done. And that applies in a variety of different ways, depending on the way you run things. As an audio professional, at some point, you might go to the point where you need to bring on assistants or people to help you edit stuff, make sure files are delivered, maybe help with client communication. And it helps to have a system for how that works, right? How do you organize things? How do you do edits on things? How do you communicate with clients, deliver files, receive files? Having like this system set up where you know what's going on, you've documented it, makes it really easy to bring on more team members, train them super fast, and then send them on their own so you can focus on the stuff that you actually enjoy doing. Systems future-proofing allows for organization. It also lets you keep your team really lean, especially since audio is a creative field. And oftentimes, like in a creative field, organization gets pushed off to the side. And that works for a while, but as growth happens, it becomes harder and harder to like know where your projects are coming from, what each project is for, when to work on it, when to deliver it, how to prioritize your time and resources. And so having that organizational element where you have this place that you go to check, okay, cool, here are the statuses of all of my projects. Here are the statuses of my leads. This is what I've delivered. This is how much I've made from these projects. It allows you to see where you're at. And as part of that, it allows you to see like where you're headed. It lets you kind of like view your business from this like mile high perspective where you're able to figure out, okay, cool, like this is what's going well because I have it in front of me. And this is where I should move things.
Right. Yeah. It's so many of us were just like, let's just make music with whoever's willing to like hire me to produce their song or whatever. And then all of a sudden you can't even keep track of everything because you're not writing things down. You don't know what you're charging every client because one artist you're charging one rate for, another artist you're charging another rate for, and then you get confused. And you it's like so important to keep track of all these things. Otherwise, it'll just be total bedlam. And if you try to remember everything in your brain, you just won't, and it won't work. Your brain's not big enough to handle a business.
Yeah,
or all the details of a business, I guess.
Yep. I've been there. Just absolute chaos trying to track down projects, figure out what I charge for things. It's chaotic, and some people really love the chaos. But eventually, like it gets to the point where it becomes a little overwhelming, and you actually can't get anything done.
That's right. And then spend all your time just like retracking your steps to make sure that you got all your information right, and like looking back through old text messages to see, oh yeah, this is what I quoted that person. Oh right, this is the deadline or whatever it is. If you have it all written out in a system, then you'd always keep track of what it is. And you could also, like you said, kind of keep track of like, oh, I'm getting more of these kinds of projects these days. Maybe this is what area of focus I could kind of double down on. You could all these stuff. Maybe it would be good to like talk about a real life example of future proofing, like, maybe a system that people might use for audio engineering or music production.
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind immediately. The first one, and this is one that I've like spent lots of time in, you have to know how to write like a standard way of like doing things, right? That's a big main part of your system. And while it may not be the system itself, making sure your way of doing things is set and like recorded down is incredibly helpful if you ever need to outsource something. You can just basically pass along this document. Here are literal step-by-step instructions. Do the thing. I'll answer any questions if you have it, but like here's everything that you need, as opposed to having to onboard people manually. This is like for team members that you might bring on. For other things, again, working in audio, you're probably working with a lot of different clientele, which means that everyone's going to have questions. And while they may be slightly unique to the like specific person, they all kind of fall under the same thing. And so things that you do consistently for each project, for each person, like when you onboard a client, when you say, okay, cool, this is what it's like to work with me. I need this file from you before I can get started. Make sure you get your resources here. Make sure you send me your files here. After you send in your files, this is exactly how I'm going to deliver, and when you're going to get your delivery is also great. And you don't have to do this in an email, right? There's a few different ways you can do this. You can send a templatized email. My preferred way is to use my website and just send people like a web page that's customized. Like, hey, awesome, I'm so glad to be working with you. Welcome to this ecosystem that is working with Enoch or working with Ben. Here's a few things I need from you in order to get your project started. And as soon as you send these in, I will get started on them and you can expect delivery in 2 weeks. Step 1, right? Send me your files. Step 2, if you're working on a song, download this split sheet template, fill out your information, sign it, and then like my part's already filled in, because at that point I could send like a Dropbox sign thing that already has my stuff filled out. Yeah, step 3, here's what to expect coming up. And another thing you can also do is like you can create a knowledge base for clients to explore, something that just answers like frequently asked questions for a business. But those are a few examples of things that like audio professionals can do to really quickly just streamline the way that they do things.
Yeah, so you're getting rid of some of the friction, I guess, that would happen at the beginning of like an interaction with an artist or a client that you'd work with. And just being like straight to like, okay, this is, it's all there. Let's go. It's go time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like in terms of like the actual, like, keeping track of your projects, like, which is also super important. Like, I'll just tell you what I'm doing, and you could tell me if maybe there's some room for improvement or what you think about this kind of idea. And basically I have like a Notion thing with like a bunch of tabs. And I kind of ripped this off of Carl Bonner, who coached me at one point. And it's like every single if people don't know what a Trello, what Trello or like Notion is, it's kind of like these Kanban boards. I don't know how to explain it. It's like lists of things with cards in them. And so like I'll have a list for every stage of a production process. So it's like we're in recording or pre-production or editing or mixing or waiting for, pending mixing, pending, approval, mastering, et cetera. And so every client every song has a card inside of that, and we move it through the steps as we go through the process. And inside the card is the artist information, what the rate is, what's involved, or if we're keeping track of hours, like keeping track of hours in there, or whatever it is, or how much they've paid you so far, that kind of a thing. What are your thoughts on that kind of a system?
Yeah, I love those kinds of systems. That is actually how I keep track of all the stuff that I work on. So I have on my own, I use Trello instead of Notion just because there's a few other like capabilities in it that really like make things easier for me, just in the way that my brain works and the way that I operate my business. But I have a bird's eye view board that basically says, okay, cool, here are projects that are in the lead stage, right? We're talking, we might not work together, but like here's like all the information that I need. I put it in the description, the rate that I quoted them, the like proposed amount of hours. And then I'll just kind of move them down the timeline, right? So from lead, we go to like, okay, cool, the project is starting. This is an active project. I have 2 columns. One is like priority. The other one is backlog, right? And so I'll move stuff into priority depending on how quickly it needs to be done. And so I'll just have like if you and I were to work on a project, I would just have one card that says Ben Wallach, right? And so like, let's say this is the week that I'm working on your project. Your card would get moved into priority. If for some reason I had a project come up that like was not as high priority, but like was urgent, meaning like, okay, cool, it might be something really fast for me to do, but like the client needs it delivered quickly, there's a little tag that I can add to it that says urgent. And actually, just a little sidebar, figuring out the difference between high priority and high urgency for me has been like a really big thing because they're not the same thing.
No, totally. Well, can you can you go deeper on that?
Yeah, of course. So like, let's say I have something that I need to do every day. I need to film content and post it on my Instagram every day. That would be considered a high urgency task because it needs to be done within a set number of hours. Obviously, I don't do that on my Instagram, but like if that were something that I needed to do for myself or for a client, that would be considered high urgency. But that specific project might not pay me a lot. It might be like a tiny like sum or a tiny fee per post or per month. And so if I had a different project that came in that was like, okay, cool, this project is paying a lot more. This client has more of a like complex build or a complex use case, that would be more of a high priority client because of the like fee that I'm getting paid for that, regardless of like how urgent that specific project is. The social media posting project is not as high priority because it's not as big of an element in like my little bird's eye view of what I'm trying to do.
So how do you kind of like decide, okay, I know this is urgent, but the hell with it. It's not, there's more important things to do. Like at what point do you say, forget it, you know?
Yeah, it's a daily thing for me. Every single morning when I like look at my, like I make a to-do list every morning. It's not in Trello. I actually like to write it down so I can like physically cross off things because that makes my brain really happy to like cross off things on a list.
The serotonin kicks in.
Yeah, it's great. The dopamine rush of crossing something off my to-do list is immaculate.
Epic.
But yeah, I'll write down a list of things that I need to do every day. And there's a few different ways you can do this. I've been doing it in a notebook recently. Some people time block in their calendars. Some people use Trello or Notion to do like something very similar. And then on the right of like my like little list, right? So let's say I have a list, post on social media, hop on a Secret Sonics interview with Ben, do my laundry, right? I'll put two columns. One will have like the letter P, one will have the letter U. And I will put like little check marks under like P or U, depending on if a task is priority or urgent. And so, for example, this interview is priority, right? Because it's something that like is important to me. I wanted to hop on this interview, wanted to chat with you. It's priority. I wouldn't consider it urgent because if something really urgent came up, I could probably text you and we could probably reschedule.
Right.
Laundry would be considered an urgent task because if I don't do laundry, I literally will have nothing to wear tomorrow.
Right.
And so going through that every day, like tomorrow, like the list will look different. Like if I have a daily task that didn't get done today, if I knew laundry was coming up, I don't know why I'm using this as a metaphor, but it works.
It's a good metaphor.
If I knew laundry was coming up, but I still had a few days left of clothing to wear, I wouldn't make that urgent, right? Depending on my day, I might make it priority because I know that it's coming up. But at some point, a priority task becomes an urgent task, or an urgent task becomes a priority task, depending on the effect that it will have on the rest of your week, or the rest of your month.
Or the rest of your life.
Or the rest of your life. Yeah, that's a scary one right there.
I'm just going for it. Amazing. Wait, so I feel like we got lost. You were talking about your system specifically inside of Trello, and how you have I guess you have different columns for urgent versus priority and some other columns.
Yeah. So I go off of typical like agile methodology, meaning that like you have like a set, everything's just kind of like in front of you. And so, yeah, active projects get moved into those columns. As projects are finished, they get moved into the, okay, cool, like in review column. With the people that I work with, usually like after our agreement period ends, there's like 30 to 60 days of like just kind of free touch-ups and support, depending on like, you know, how the actual like system or like automation build is working. Mm-hmm. And so a project will get moved into that column for in review. And then like as things get polished up, it'll eventually get moved to finished. And then into a list that's like project archive. Basically just a list of all the projects that I've done so that I can look back and see, okay, cool, this was something I worked on a while ago and all that.
Nice.
But yeah, that's my general like way of organizing projects.
So I'm glad I'm not too far off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When do you think is a good time for people to start implementing systems? Is this something you should be thinking about when you don't have any artists to work with? Like, when would be a good time to do this?
It depends on the person. So for me, I honestly probably started working on my systems a little too early. I didn't have a business that was built or fully executed or realized when I was like, oh my gosh, I can make a project planner for this. This will do so much for my business, but I had no leads. I had no developed business. And so I started it a little too early. Some people start a little too late where they're like drowning in projects and they like need to now suddenly relink everything to a project planner and like take a week out of their lives to figure out exactly what's where and what's going where. I would say the best time to start something like that is when your business is starting to pick up, but when you still have a little bit of breathing room. And for me, that is when I start making consistent, like recurring monthly income, regardless of if it's like a very big chunk of money or not. So for example, I do this, like I mostly work in like systems and like future proofing for businesses, but I also teach piano on the side because I've played piano for a really long time. I've been a session musician and it's just something people are interested in. And for me, like when I get to around like 8 or so students is when I need to start getting a little more organized because I'm realizing that things are becoming a little more chaotic. I'm not entirely sure where each student is at. At that point, it would probably be a good idea to create some sort of a like CRM, like client management thing to like figure out like where each of my students is at, like what each of them is paying me, what books I've ordered for each of them. The other day I realized I gave a book that I had ordered for a different student to the wrong student. And so like was super embarrassed and had to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me take that book back because it was meant to go to this other student. And so I'm at the point where I'm realizing things are a little chaotic, a little messy.
Things
I'm
start
not
to fall
drowning.
through the cracks.
Yeah. So it's time to systemize and organize it just a little bit so that I can keep growing that should I decide to.
Yeah. So I'll tell you about why I hired you to help me. And well, we'd already kind of just talked about these things. And I sort of have like a podcast business, not sort of, I have a podcast business on the side of the audio and music production stuff I'm doing because it was just kind of like a business model I couldn't say no to at this time in my life, supporting a family. And I figured out a way that I could kind of sort of scale it in a way that I'm not like spending all my time doing it, but I'm still making money and I'm helping people and it's a good business, a good service. And I was talking to my wife's cousin about it, and I said, yeah, it's picking up a little slower than I thought, but it's picking up. And he kind of told me, he's like, you know, that's great. Like it's good that it's starting slow because that gives you time to kind of get your eggs, you know, your ducks in a row or whatever, kind of like make things order. I'm like, you're totally right. I need to do this now because I have a feeling it's going to get really crazy soon. Let me talk to Enoch because we talked about this, and like, sure enough, you kind of help. So the system that you set up for me was in Trello, not in Notion or whatever. But anyways, we kind of set this thing up just as things were getting really hectic for me because it was like at a point where I was like, okay, now I'm getting like upwards of 10 podcasts a week, and I have 2 editors, and like I can't even keep track of where my editors are at with the different episodes, and like I don't even know how long they spent on every episode. Like I don't know. I'm totally dependent on just people, on trusting other people and not having it, which I do, but not having it in front of me, you know? So it was like, it just kind of came at the exact right moment of like, things are about to get crazy if I don't really organize this and like also figure out a lot of the like recurring tasks that I was dealing with, right? Of like making a new folder, you know, sending files to that folder, exporting, you know, all, like things that kept happening over and over again where it was obvious that things could be faster and more expedited. So anyways, just thought I'd throw that out there as like a case study.
Yeah, that was a really fun project to work on. I actually learned a lot doing that one with you. So
nice. Yeah. What threw you for a loop the most, I guess, working on my project?
So we moved from Notion over to Trello because Trello had better automation capabilities like natively within the platform. But there were a few things that I had to like figure out how to do that weren't within Trello. For example, like the creation of folders and creation of subfolders and like automatically sharing them. And so I had to teach myself a few things. I had to learn how to code a webhook, which I had never done before. And I was like, okay, great. Awesome. let's learn, right? There's always like an opportunity to learn and grow and like continue like expanding knowledge. And so this is one of those cases where I was like, cool, I'm offering Ben a solution. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna offer a solution.
Yeah. And now it's a good solution to also use for future people, Now
now I know how to do it.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Learning is always good. I always like music people, like music producers, audio engineers. We love lifetime learning. I think that's something that's common among all of us, and we're just always trying to improve and get better. And so that's, I guess, one area that you were able to do that as well. Let's talk about websites, social media. Those are things that are, I guess, part of systems as well. Like, what do you have to say about those things? Let's start with websites.
Yeah. Your website is so powerful. It's more than just a front-facing page for people to get to know you. Your website, first of all, is like, aside from social media, is probably someone's like first or second impression of you before even getting to know you. And what I see a lot of people do in their systems is they brag about themselves. They're like, oh yeah, look at what I've worked here. I copied the Netflix logo and put it onto my website. Wow. Here's the Sony logo, right? They talk about their own achievements versus like how they can help other people. And so your website is your first point of nurture, right? Someone's clicked on your website. They're at least somewhat interested in who you are and they want to know more. And if they see something that's just completely bragging about like, oh yeah, here's everything that I've done, they're less likely to work with you than if you really nurture someone through the website and say like, or through your website landing page and say like, okay, cool. Like, here is something that I solve, right? Here's a problem that I solve versus here's a bunch of credits that like I've done. And so being able to set up your website in a way where it directs people to like how you can help them, is like immediate, like the first thing you should do. Other things that you can do with your website is you create other pages, like maybe pages that people can't access to by just like clicking on buttons on your website. But for example, like artist onboarding. If you're working with an artist, if you're working with a producer, same thing that we talked about earlier, like this is exactly how to get me your files. This is how they need to be formatted. Every single step you need to do in order to get your project done as soon as possible. Create a web page for them, walk them through it step by step. Yeah, I have like 20 plus unlinked pages on my website that are literally just like instructions for people to follow.
Yeah. And also when it has like your logo on it, it has your branding like involved in it, it's more impressive than just like, you sending a Google Doc or whatever. It kind of like, oh, this is the real deal. Like, yeah. Like File Pass, for example. When I send somebody a File Pass and it says Ben Wallach Music Productions on the top of the thing when they're listening to the song, it immediately says, oh, this guy's a professional. And the same thing with like, somebody sent me a video they were working on with frame.io, which I just found out about. And it's like video, it's like the same thing. And I was like, oh, this is so impressive. Like, and she she was asking me for screen recordings from a recording session I did because she's making a music video that's involving the production, which is really neat. And I was like, oh, cool. And she had like, the timestamps of what she was looking for. And I was like, this is so helpful. You're such a professional. It was like immediately, okay, I'm in, Like those kind of things really help. Amazing. So let's move on to social media, because that's like, I think we were talking about before we started recording how sick of social media we all are. I think we're getting to a point where we're just so done with it. But somehow people still spend time there, and it's still important. What should, I guess on a systems level, how should we be using social media to help our music engineering, audio engineering, music production careers?
Yeah, I tend to look at social media as like an awareness system. People discover you, get to know who you are on social media. And honestly, my Instagram is a really bad example of this, because I think my entire feed is just random things that I've done in the last few months, and none of it is work related. But if you are a social media person, or if creating content for your business is something that speaks to you, social media can be really powerful. You kind of figure out who hangs out on each platform. So I tend to do most of my lead gen via Facebook, of all places, because the people that I want to work with typically connect with me via Facebook versus Instagram. So figuring out who hangs out on what social media platform is really important, right? So if you're a music producer, Instagram and TikTok are huge. Get videos of you. Like we all, this is an audio podcast. We all know how many tracks go into like a production. But people on Instagram, people on TikTok who are artists or who are consumers of content don't know that, right? Hit play on your laptop and just like act like you're playing an entire track on your keyboard or on your guitar, and then sync up the video, post that a few times every week. And you'll probably get like more awareness content. It's a really great visual way to push what you're making. Before and after videos are also great. For people who consume more text-based posts or who prefer to interact with text-based things, Facebook is great. Twitter used to be great. I'm not sure. At the point where we're recording this podcast, there's a war going on between Twitters and Threads. And like Mastodon, Blue Sky, all those Twitter dupes. And so I'm not entirely sure where that is headed, but as a marketing platform for yourself, as a way to generate awareness, for text-based stuff, I do recommend Facebook. Or honestly, you could start a blog.
Really?
I don't know how many people watch. I've seen people start blogs before and get like leads from it.
In 2023, people are doing blogs?
Crazy. It's like how Google searches work.
Yeah.
It's all about like SEO and search engine optimization. You have to figure out and know like, quote, what are these keywords that people are searching for? How do I get to the top of that? Which is honestly really hard to do. That's not something that I really do, but it's something I have a lot of friends who do really well. And so like just kind of in proxy from, working with my friends, blogs kind of work. It really depends. You have to be really strategic about it. Twitter, Threads, those are more, I find them to be more personality platforms. You can post thoughtful things, but people don't tend to engage with thoughtful things unless you're already famous.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. From what I understand, Twitter is a dumpster fire, and I thankfully don't go on there ever.
Yeah.
for way before it became politicized. I'm talking like way back. I just never connected with me.
Yeah, it's always been a dumpster fire.
Yes, exactly. Hey everyone, if you've made it this far into the episode, then you're probably a fan of podcasts that help your personal development in the music industry. Former guest of the show and fellow podcaster Travis Ferentz hosts Progressions, a show about finding success in the music business. If you dig Secret Sonics, I have a feeling that you might enjoy his angle too. You can go check it out via the link in the show notes below. So go check it out. All right, back to the episode. Do you have like any thoughts of like where social media is going and how people could maybe use it in the future as we go forward to kind of promote themselves and get I guess for lead gen, I guess for music producers and stuff, like any ideas, tips, thoughts?
I feel like social media evolves constantly. Algorithms change constantly. And so I would spend time just making quality content, right? That like lets your personality shine through as well, because people will be attracted to that. And that's pretty much it. Like social media will change. There will be new things. You're going to have to kind of look at it and figure out how to adapt. But for right now, at least, video is huge. Short form video is really huge. And so like if you start a podcast with a friend, right? Like I recently started a podcast with a friend, and we did our first recording and realized half of our like clips, like talking about questions and things, were over 6 minutes long. And unfortunately, people don't consume content that's over 90 seconds long these days, at least not on social media. And so being smart about what you're posting, how long your post is, how engaging the entire thing is pretty important. And so right now I would say, focus on what people consume.
Do you think that social media is necessary for somebody looking to have a career in audio and music these days?
Ooh, that is a really great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary evil. It is a really good free way of getting people to figure out if they like what you do, if they resonate with what you do or not. The other way you can do it, like you can run marketing ads to yourself. But what does someone do when they see an ad about something? They search for it on Instagram. They search for it on Reddit. They want to see more. They want to like kind of paint themselves a picture of who you are before even considering working with you.
Right.
And so having at least some sort of a social media presence is probably good. I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary, but I think it is a good way for people who are interested in working with you to figure out who you are, if not, what you do.
All right. Do you think we should stick to like one platform or do a little bit of more than one? What are your thoughts on that? I guess this is more of like a branding question than a systems question.
Absolutely. I would do a bit of everything, but stick with the platform where your audience hangs out the most.
Yeah. So for me, that's definitely Instagram, right? Like without a question.
Yeah. For me, it's Facebook and LinkedIn for what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But when I was trying to be a producer / like session musician, absolutely it was Instagram, because the people who were hiring me were millennials, right? If I were trying to target predominantly Gen Z as clientele, I would go to TikTok. And yeah, that's kind of as far as everything's gotten so far. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be so many more platforms that come in the future.
Yeah, maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of shift over to like the future and AI and systems and what's happening with all this shit. It's like, yeah. I think AI was like the technology that actually happened. Like everybody was like NFTs, crypto, and none of that stuff was
Web3.
Yeah, exactly. But then AI happened and it came along with ChatGPT, and everyone's like, oh shit, the future is now. This is what's happening. Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI? What are your thoughts on the future and how that can be used maybe potentially to help people with their businesses?
Yeah, it's a big buzzword. And I think a lot of people treat it as a buzzword. They haven't explored it for themselves. Like, have you checked out ChatGPT?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
It's great. Like, honestly, the bio that I sent you that you read at the beginning of this interview was written by ChatGPT.
Was it really?
It was hang on, let me pull it up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I will read you what I fed it.
Oh my God.
This is
I have to ask ChatGPT for a bio for myself.
So I literally wrote a prompt, right? So the bio that I have saved in my phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want this to look and sound better, but not like hokey and like fluffy, right? The first thing that I wrote was like, oh yeah, Enoch Yang is a systems and operational management specialist and has helped systemize and automate the operations of independent music producers, blah, blah, blah. And like, I edited it a little bit to like not sound pretentious, but like the first thing it spat out at me, like I was like, hey, can you help me make this bio sound more professional? It said Enoch Yang is a highly accomplished systems and operation management specialist who possesses a proven track record in systemizing and automating the operations of various entities within the music industry. That automatically sounds so much cooler than I actually am. And so like even like when we had initially talked about like doing this podcast and like chatting, my first move was to like open up ChatGPT and be like, hey, I need an outline. This is what I'm talking about. Can you give me some talking points? And it just spat out like a 7-point outline that I like obviously remodeled dramatically, but it gave me a starting point to start off with.
Right.
And so like if you're looking for something to like help you present better, or like even like negotiation tactics, like you send a quote to someone, they send you an email back declining, feed it through ChatGPT and see what it tells you to say.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's a wild use case I never thought of.
It saves you so many hours. You're not just sitting there trying to think like, what do I say to this email, right? There's been days in the past where I've spent 5 hours trying to craft a perfectly written response to someone. And now I can literally just click a button and say, hey, I need to respond to this. This is my end goal. I want to convert this client or this lead. I need it to sound casual and friendly, but also professional. And it'll just write you a response that you can then edit and send.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. I guess for this kind of stuff, it's way more, it's easier to be optimistic, but then for like with music creation, maybe where who knows what's going to be left. I mean, for now, it seems like the AI generation of music is quite banal. But like it does the tools that it helps you, like Isotope RX or whatever, and these kinds of things that can help you just get to where you need to get to quicker is super. Yeah. Rather than like EQing out like a metronome, or whatever it is that you're doing with RX, stuff like that. I know there's like Isotope also. There's like not Isotope. I mean, it is Isotope, but Ozone. And all these kind of like advanced learning things that can maybe help you get in the direction that you want to go. I guess we'll see how that all shakes out. There's other things that scare me about AI. We don't have to maybe talk about that. I mean, maybe I'll just say it.
Say it.
I'm just afraid. I'm afraid that everything on the internet is going to be like dubious. Like nobody's going to know what's real anymore on the internet very soon.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, if, like these deep fake videos. I don't know if you've seen that. Like the and like I keep getting these like Facebook ads of like, what can Zapier and ChatGPT do for you? And I just kind of like realized like, okay, if people are like combining these kind of automation tools with AI, it's just like the whole internet is going to turn into like absolute fakeness,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we might
it's
be
crazy.
We might be in a totally different world in 2 or 3 years from now, you know?
Yeah, I will say this, like AI is probably here to stay and we're probably only going to see it get better. I think that's a good thing. Like as long as like the ethics around AI stay moral, I think eventually AI will be able to help you manage and maintain your business. And I think that's like incredible because it
Right.
saves people so much time. It also puts me out of a job, which means that like I'll have to pivot sometime in the future. But as we've discussed in like the beginning of this like interview, pivoting is just a part of business. It's a thing. You just have to do it. And the reason why you systemize things is so that you have the mental brain space to pivot and to move your business around.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think people in our age bracket are not going to be Manny Marroquin, right? We're not going to be just mixing records, hit records for 25 years or however long he's been doing it. I think 30 years. Like we're, like right now I'm in a season where I'm doing a bunch of production and I'm also doing a bunch of podcast work. And then in 3 years, I might be in a season where I'm just mixing. Like who knows? Like life is very dynamic. And it's, like I think my podcasting business might also go out of business with AI in a few years. Like who knows? Like they'll do all the audio enhancement for me and editing. Like they're already sort of doing it. They're just not doing it that well, you know?
Yeah. But eventually
it might happen. Right.
it's kind of scary. Yeah.
So maybe we'll all just be
bit.
free to create.
That would be lovely. I would love that.
It sounds nice. But I guess we'll see. Amazing. So let's talk about automation a little bit. I kind of hinted at it with talking about Zapier. What is automation,
absolutely.
and how does automation save time and effort for audio professionals?
Yeah. So automation is kind of like this little subsect of systems. The easiest way to explain it is basically an automation is something that automatically accomplishes a task or a set of tasks when it's triggered. These tasks are all like, usually they're manageable like manually, like you can do them yourself, but like automating them speeds them up without like the need for anyone to like do every single step on them. Let's see. Let's use our laundry metaphor since we're still there.
Oh, the laundry metaphor. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say you have this hamper, right? And we're going to apply this also like business stuff later. But let's say you have a hamper that you throw your clothes in. And when it reaches a certain weight in the hamper, a little chute underneath opens up. Everything drops into your washing machine. It scans what kinds of clothes have dropped in, puts in the right amount of detergent, washes the clothes. When that's done, it opens up, drops into a dryer. The dryer does everything that it needs to do, dries it to the perfect amount, and then pops it into a hamper for you to fold. Right. That takes so much energy and time out of what you're doing. And that is essentially what automation does for your business. So a more practical like example that people are probably going to come across is you're scrolling Instagram and you see an ad for towels. And you see, and they're like, okay, cool. If you give us your email, we'll give you a 20% off discount code for these really fancy towels. So you click the ad, you enter your email in exchange for discount code. And the next thing you know, you receive the discount code in your email. It's texted to you as well. And then over the course of the next few months, you receive a shit ton of like email marketing emails from them.
Of course.
Right? That is not all happening manually, right? There is a lot going on in the back end, right? So you click on the Instagram ad, you enter your email and hit submit. The manual way of doing it would be, okay, cool. Like someone gets an email, ping up on their computer. It says, Ben Wallach has entered his email for this 20% off code. Send him the code. So someone writes up an email and says, hey, Ben, here's your code for 20% off these towels. That person then also has to import your information into the database, and the database then tells the person, cool, like now write up a bunch of marketing emails to send Ben to try to get, more sales in the future.
Right.
That would take so long to do manually. And so what happens is you entering your email is a trigger for an automation. The automation automatically registers your information in the company's database. You get sent the email automatically, and then your information is then used to push an email marketing campaign to you instantaneously, as opposed to someone doing it manually. And so that is basically what automation is. Can all this stuff happen manually? Absolutely. Does it save an insane amount of time to have it happen automatically? Yeah. And so that is basically automation in a nutshell, and like what it does and how it helps.
Mm-hmm. So let's bring it all together. How can you use automation and some of the tools that we've talked about to kind of help future-proof your audio music business?
So it really depends on what an individual's business is, what it looks like. But an email campaign is probably the easiest thing to set up. A lot of audio professionals, they have inquiry portals on their websites. And when someone fills out that form, you just get an email saying someone's filled out your inquiry form, and then you have to respond to it. A great way to automate this is, like the Instagram thing. Record it in a database, send a confirmation email to the person who's like inquiring, start an email campaign, right? The email campaign doesn't have to be super marketing or markety. It doesn't have to be like hey, buy from me right now, because you're not selling towels, you're selling a service, right? You want to get people to know you, you want to nurture your leads. And so that email campaign that you set up, you basically nurture that lead, right? You send free templates or mix tips. These are all pre-written. They all send at a very specific interval. If you wanted to immediately push to a sale, you can send them down like a marketing funnel, offer a limited discount on a product. You can split test it, do both, see which one gets more interactions. But basically, like, automation would take what you would typically do in order to like nurture a lead, and then it does it for you, so you don't have to think about it.
Right.
It's kind of similar to like what we did with your like podcast production business, right? We built a project tracker, and when you have a new project come in, it automatically creates Dropbox folders for projects, shares them with members of your team to edit, and then notifies you when an edit is done.
Yeah.
So just kind of like in summary, right? Like automation isn't like all just fancy triggers and coding. It applies to a lot of stuff, right? Email campaigns, using apps to schedule social media posts, tracking royalties, stream trends, basically anything that you would have to do manually otherwise that consumes a lot of time and takes you away from like doing the stuff you enjoy.
Right. So I guess in conclusion, things that take up time, let's let other things do that for us, so that we don't have to do it all the time and do repetitive tasks all the time, and we can focus on the task at hand. Awesome. So before we wrap it up, maybe we talked about my business a little bit. Let's talk about maybe what you did with that pitch as like a case study of like, I guess, how you could use more of these systems and automations for a music company.
So that pitch had a pretty specific use case in that pitch was a music tech business as opposed to a producer or like a single member operated like company. Right. And so there were a few more complex pain points that we had to address and take a look at and find ways to solve. Just off the top of my head, a few of them were they needed to support higher and higher quantities of music. So like people, like as members joined, there were more and more submissions coming through. And so like their team couldn't check every single submission as it came through. So they had to build a way to like make sure that like 90% of the work is offloaded to the composer and the creator, basically to make sure like, okay, cool, let's make sure all the music coming in is compliant. Part two, they also needed to check songs for like copyright flags, right? Basically like if someone used a sample unknowingly, that would create a flag on like the end user's account and basically like cause a bunch of legal stuff that would need to happen, right?
Right.
That pitch needed to find a way to basically scan a song, find copyright infringement, and then like delete the song or like move it into a folder that said, okay, cool, we need to manually review this. And then three, that pitch also needed to find a way to mass license music instead of spending all the team's resources on song administration. How can you automate a lot of those steps? So what were the solutions for those, right? So for higher quantities of music, we ended up building a submission portal that like had a few different check marks, right? Like I affirm that this is a original composition. This is not a cover, right? That kind of stuff. Basically force the composers to double check that their submission met the guidelines set forth in each brief. Right. And this took out 90% of the legwork that the team had to do to like check songs and all that. Mm-hmm. For copyright flags, I didn't help out as much with this one, but I got to help test it. This is really cool. So they ended up building a custom song scanner that basically identifies sample usage and flags songs for potential copyright infringement. Right, so it would listen to a submission from one of the composers, break it apart, and then like match it to a database of music to see if anything was copied. Wow. And it got to the point where it would list each flag as like, this could potentially infringe on major label songs, right? This is potentially just flat out plagiarism. Or like even like go so far as like YouTube Content ID. Like, hey, this sample was used in this song that was used in this YouTube video and is not compliant. for this license, because everything that pitch did at that point was exclusive licenses. And so they needed to make sure that everything was original, custom built music.
Crazy.
And then it would also identify like, this is the timestamp that was flagged in the song as well, for like whoever was going through to manually review it to see if it was actually a thing. Absolutely insane.
Wow, that's crazy. One
of the coolest tools that I've used. And then lastly, for mass licensing, and we've talked about this a few times on this episode specifically, but we ended up building web pages that would walk a composer step by step through the documents they needed to sign, file deliverables down to the exact format, how to do license transfers, metadata, as well as a call to action, basically saying, hey, post this on your Instagram, right? Just as a way to increase like general engagement and awareness on that pitch as a service. And so those were like 3 of the main things that I worked on during my time there.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Enoch, this has been so fun and eye-opening, and I would just encourage everybody who is in the music business, to think about things that they can kind of systematize and trim the fat on your business, so to speak, so that you can focus more on the work that you want to do and not just be bombarded with, repetitive tasks and things that are not so fun. So think about what Enoch's talking about and how you can maybe apply it to your own music business. Before we wrap the show, and we will wrap it soon, but I just wanted to ask you the final question of the show, which I ask everybody. And I know I don't remember what you told me last time, but looking back on your journey, was there something that I know this is a different kind of episode, but I think it still applies. Was there something that you did or didn't do that you'd want to impart on your earlier self?
Just keep trying. Yeah, just keep trying. Like, you're building a career for yourself. That does not happen overnight. Keep it up. You're doing great. I see you. And if you ever need any help, or if you ever need like support, there are always people out there who are like a few steps ahead of you that are always down to be like, hey, yeah, I've been where you've been. Right. So just keep doing it.
Just keep doing it. I keep coming back to this answer of like, you're still a music producer because you're still producing music, and that's it. As long as you're still doing it, you're still doing it. So yeah, keep trying and don't be afraid of failure. I guess I'm like reading into between the lines or whatever. But yeah, awesome. Love it. I don't know if that's what you said the first time, but we can go back and reference.
Probably something similar, honestly.
We'll have to go back and reference. Like I don't actually re-listen to old episodes. Once they're out, they're out,
They're done. They cease to exist.
No, they exist for future people to hear, but but I don't revisit them. Maybe I should. It would be interesting to listen. I guess I have re-listened to like maybe 1 or 2. But anyways, this is so good. Before I let you go, maybe you can pitch yourself a little bit, tell the audience a little bit about how they can find out more about what you do and the services that you're offering.
Best way to figure out what I'm doing and what I'm working on is via my website. So you can just head to EnochYang.com. Just to kind of see like what I'm working on. A lot of it's just gonna be systems automation, future proofing, helping people do it for themselves. I do have a few free like DIY kits on my website, as well as like one, I think it's like $39 for like a complete, like if you're a music producer, this is everything you need as far as systems go to like get you started, that you can find those. For further help, would definitely be down to hop on a call, or like if you want someone to like help you figure out specific systems for your own needs, or like if you want someone to do it all for you, so you just literally don't even have to think about it. You can head to my website, just EnochYang.com/Secret Sonics. And if you mention the Secret Sonics code, which is just Secret Sonics or whatever, just say you heard me on the pod with Ben.
That's not automated enough for your business.
Yeah, I'll automate it.
Well, you can keep it manual. That's good.
Yeah, keep it manual.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll offer a discount for the next few months if anyone wants to hop on that. Just kind of I'll do some more stuff like closer to that cost. So yeah.
Epic. All right. Well, Enoch, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for the work that you did for me, and
happy to help out.
For coming back on the show to share a little bit more of what you're doing and how people can maybe use those kinds of tools to help themselves. So thank you so much, and hope all is well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Ben. Great talking again.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you've been digging the show, it would be awesome if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, and or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. That's it for now. Have a great week. Take care and dig in. See you soon. Bye-bye.